Gary, let's start with you. Your thoughts about the residue in the stomach.
Well, it seems to concur with all of the other medical experts who have been asked the same question. And I'm going to reference Ronald Kornblum, who was the Los Angeles County coroner in 1982, and the DA interviewed him for the investigation. And he said that the pharmaceutical companies specifically designed sleeping pills to dissolve very quickly in the human system so that they actually work. So he believed that this was totally consistent with an oral ingestion of an overdose, and that during an autopsy of such a death, the refractile crystals could only be discovered in the system if the death were somehow instantaneous. But he agreed that Marilyn had likely taken the medication and lingered on for several hours, absorbing them into her system.
Yeah, I think it was Dr. Stevens, and Leslie, I'm not sure if you have this in front of you, but it says that the Nebutyl dye in yellowish color doesn't necessarily create a residue or a color stain as well, and that basically that it's not common, and that it took him about 4 years before he even saw a slight coloration in somebody's stomach. So 4 years in terms of doing autopsies. What did you get from Dr. Stevens?
Yeah, Dr. Stevens agrees very much with what Dr. Wecht has stated, and he very clearly says that both Nembutal and chlorohydrate are absorbed very rapidly by the system, and that if there's enough time, he says if the patient lives for a period enough of time, then the material will not only be absorbed, but any residues will pass on into the gastrointestinal tract where it will become even more difficult to recognize. So going by the time of death that we have based on the liver temperature, there's definitely enough time for chlorohydrate and Nembutal both to have been completely absorbed and to leave no residue noticeable behind.
Well, and that's the other thing that we're going to get to after the break is the injections and the enema theories, et cetera, and just revisit this one more time. So guys, when you hear, Marilyn fans, when you hear, why wasn't there residue in the stomach? You're hearing it from multiple sources, multiple doctors, Dr. Cyril Wecht, Dr. Stevens, there is Kornblum, there is Weinberg in here in the DA report. There's multiple sources, and it makes sense. That's the key. If you know the logic of why it would have evaporated, it has to do with the fact that it was a length of time. Marilyn did not pass away within minutes. Okay, that's one of the things that we found out from the last couple of weeks. So it's really important as we look at the forensics of the pathology of Marilyn, not something we're making up, not a theory. We now know that residue in the stomach isn't necessarily something that you would find.